Now, in the next few moments that we're going to spend together, I would like to share with you the journey that I have undertaken in my quest and search for belonging. I invite you to walk in my shoes, see what I see, feel what I feel. Belonging is forged in empathy. Empathy is formed in connection. Be open to the experience and allow yourself to find the we in me. My journey of belonging began early. I was this high-energy kid filled with rapid-fire questions, an innate wanderlust, and a sense of curiosity about everything in the world. So growing up, I lost myself in books. Disney and adventure tales were my favorites. In these stories, there was always someone who was not readily accepted or embraced, but somehow found their happy ending of belonging. People embrace these characters, not in spite of their quirks and idiosyncrasies, but because of them. I wanted to experience that for myself.
Yes.
So when I entered first grade, I was beyond excited. I thought I would find kindred spirits at school. But when I arrived, however, things did not go exactly as I'd hoped. Our classroom was filled with worksheets and desks arranged in neat rows where kids sat quietly doing seat work, did not ask questions, and spoke only when spoken to. I didn't fit that paradigm. And I certainly did not follow those rules. And so one day, my teacher had passed out the worksheets and was on her way back to the front of the class, and she turned around just in time to see me dragging the desks of a group of my classmates over so I could help them with their work. And y'all, she snapped. She grabbed me by my arms, dragged me to the front of the class, sat me down in one of those kid-sized wooden chairs, hard, then snatched a roll of silver duct tape from her desk and taped my mouth shut. She then taped me to my chair and left me there on display. I was shocked. I was horrified. I was embarrassed. And I was alone. My classmates stared at me uncomfortably for a few moments and then averted their eyes. I was one of only 3 Black students in the class, and so normally I stood out physically, but in that moment, it was as if I was invisible. I was given a clear message. I did not belong. I was not like them, but more importantly, there was no one like me. In 2nd grade, I entered a brand new program. It was called Students Actively Involved in Learning. And my teacher, Miss Edmonds, showed me what it felt like to be welcomed and invited in for who I am. As we sat on the floor, our foreheads almost touching during an independent study project, leafing through National Geographic magazines and pointing out pictures of faraway countries and sharing tidbits about exciting new cultures, she was just as excited, if not more so, than I was. As we sat listening to the pressed record recording of the sounds of the humpback whale, I fell in love with whales and back in love with learning. She not only shared in our excitement, she mirrored it for all of us. We were a community of learners connected by our rapid-fire questions, innate wanderlust, and sense of curiosity about everything in the world. For the first time, I felt the we in me. Belonging is healing. Belonging is experienced understanding. It is the opposite of loneliness. Belonging allows you to deepen and broaden your definition of finding people like me. It bridges the gap between reaching outward and turning inward to find the we in me. Belonging begins and ends with you. We've all had times when we felt isolated or alone, felt like we were the odd one out because of how different we think we are. It is a universal truth that we all search for belonging. I bet most of you, when you enter a room, the first thing you do is look for somebody familiar, somebody with the same hair color, shirt, something. Oh, really? It's just me? Thank you. But that's what we do. Human beings are social creatures. We are hardwired, according to research, to seek out belonging, to gravitate towards people we can connect with, share aspects of ourselves with, form community with. A community where they see me, they hear me, they value me. A safe space where they accept and will not judge me. That's true belonging. That's finding the we in me. On August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans. I was at home in my living room on my couch when water began pouring in under the baseboards, rising chest high within 15 minutes. Nobody thinks about drowning in your own home. But after hearing the screams of my neighbors on either side of me as they were awakened by water rushing into their beds, I started to think that might be a real possibility. Sitting in the attic, watching the water rise beneath me, listening to the wind rage around me, and feeling the roof shake above me, all I could think about was, is this it? In that moment, you are alone with your thoughts, your fears, your regrets. A few weeks ago, I was facilitating a session at a conference, and I mentioned that I lived in New Orleans. And afterwards, an attendee came up, introduced himself, and asked, "Were you in Katrina?" I nodded, yes. And he said very quietly, "Me too." In the midst of that crowded room, there was an immediate connection that formed between us. Shared trauma and vulnerability connect people in deep, long-lasting ways. With an imperceptible nod, there was an immediate connection and feeling of belonging. We automatically knew. We didn't need to go into details. We immediately saw, felt, and understood the we in me. How many of you have gone through the same type of thing when you're experiencing a loss or going through a traumatic event? When you are going through it, it's like you are the only one, like you're alone. But when you find other people who share that experience, there is a connection, an immediate sense of belonging in a community that transcends words. In that space, how amazing is it not to have to fight to be heard, or not to have to justify your feelings or explain your emotions, because other people automatically understand and they get it. That's finding the we in me. A few months ago, I spent 7 days in Ghana. It was my first trip to Africa. I was beyond excited, not just because I got to visit a new country and experience a new culture, but for me, this was like a pilgrimage. For the first time, I wasn't the only. I was sister. I was auntie, y'all. Even my shopping experiences were different from back home. I didn't experience what I call the Goldilocks treatment from salespeople. You know, too hot, way too much attention, or too cold, completely ignoring you. And even the clothes I found were beautiful, and they fit me right off the rack, like this dress. Everywhere I went, I was included. I was seen. I was heard. I was valued. And on that trip, I had an epiphany. Belonging doesn't mean I have to change or exclude parts of myself to be accepted or seen, heard, and valued by others. It doesn't require that bold first grader inside me to dumb down or hide aspects of who she is, or even that terrified survivor to pretend that she is unchanged by what I've been through, or even being resigned to being uncomfortable in the spaces or even the clothes that I occupy. We all belong. We are born with belonging. The challenge is not to belong, it's to acknowledge and accept that we belong. To allow ourselves to connect with others. To see the we in me. At this point in my journey of belonging, even now, this is the first time that I am allowing myself to be fully seen like this. In a room full of strangers. So thank you. And it is terrifying. But I have made a decision to show up fully, wholly, and authentically. I've made a commitment to allow myself to connect to others, to connect to you. And I have determined and promised to show up as Keisha. I see you on your own journeys. So take a moment and close your eyes. I want you to think about what it is that makes you you. All the nuances and quirks that make up your personality. Now think about a time when you were isolated or alone or felt like nobody understood. Now think about what it felt like to belong, to have others who see you and value you. Now imagine, what does it take for you to have that safe space where you can be seen, heard, and valued without consequence? Now open your eyes. The people around you, that's the we in me. We are all on the same journey. We all want the same thing, to belong. So today, I invite you to make a commitment to creating these safe spaces for people to feel seen, heard, and valued, to meet each other wherever we are on that path, and to be a champion of light where we shine onto others and we can say, I see you. I see the we in me.